Welcome to Auto News Talk. I mean, if you want to understand the absolute chaos happening in the automotive industry right now, you don't even need to look at a corporate balance sheet.
No, you really don't. You can literally just drive by a local lot.
Exactly. You just need to look at the Dodge Charger. Because there is a massive anomaly sitting out there on the asphalt.
Oh, the inventory numbers on that are just nuts.
They are. According to some quarterly data from CarGurus, the Dodge Charger currently has an 829-day supply on dealer lots.
Which is, that is over 2 years worth of heavy metal just baking in the sun.
Right, over 2 years. And that single glaring statistic tells the whole story of an industry caught in this brutal squeeze play.
Yeah, the pressure's coming from both sides.
Exactly. On one side, vehicles cost an astronomical amount of capital to develop and build. And on the other side, consumers have hit an absolute wall on what they can afford.
And we're watching everyone from global manufacturing giants to the local sales team on your corner just scramble to survive this mismatch.
It's a systemic shock to the system.
It really is.
Yeah.
And navigating it requires a totally different mindset. So here's the terrain we are walking through. We are going to look at the massive shift in consumer buying power right there on the lot.
Which is dictating everything.
Right. Then we'll see how global automakers are hitting the brakes on their grand strategies. After that, we'll look at how a major foreign player is exploiting a backdoor to enter the market.
That part is wild.
It is. And finally, we'll look at how local dealerships are plugging the holes in their own ships to defend their margins.
So let's start right there on the asphalt with that CarGurus report, because the consumer is speaking loud and clear, and they're doing it by keeping their wallets firmly shut.
Yeah, the spending habits have completely shifted.
It feels like we spent the last 5 years watching automakers build nothing but like $80,000 luxury penthouses. And now they're shocked that the public is standing outside demanding starter homes.
That is the perfect analogy. And the CarGurus data perfectly illustrates that disconnect.
Right.
What they found is this massive affordability pivot.
Meaning buyers are just walking away from the premium stuff.
Exactly. The entire market is fracturing based on price points. Overall, market days supply for new cars is sitting around 72.6 days. But when you stratify that by price, the real story emerges.
So what happens when you break it down?
Well, vehicles priced under $30,000 are incredibly tight. They turn fast. But those higher-priced new vehicles, specifically the ones of that $70,000 to $80,000 bracket, they are anchoring the lot.
Just sitting there.
Right. They're averaging almost 88 days of supply.
And for anyone who doesn't work in a dealership, days supply isn't just some vanity metric. Dealers use floor plan financing to buy those cars from the manufacturer.
Which means they're on the hook for the interest.
Exactly. They are paying interest on every vehicle sitting on that lot. So if a car sits for 88 days, or 829 days for some Chargers, that interest expense is actively eating the dealer's profit margin alive.
Every single month. Which is why the panic is really setting in locally. The CarGurus report points out that the share of models priced under $30,000 has plummeted by 60% over a 3-year span.
Wow, 60%. So the cheap cars just don't exist.
They don't. Since the factories aren't building cheap new cars, price-sensitive shoppers are completely abandoning the new car lot. They are pivoting hard to the nearly new segment.
Meaning cars that are, a year or two old?
Right, vehicles 2 years old or less. That specific category saw a 24% year-over-year sales spike.
Because they're basically letting the original owner take the massive depreciation hit?
Exactly. They snap up a modern car for a fraction of the cost.
And that applies to electric vehicles too, right? Because the EV market has been struggling with that exact premium price problem.
Oh, absolutely. When the price is right, the middle moves. The CarGurus analysis highlights the Hyundai IONIQ 5 as a really prime example of this.
What happened with the IONIQ 5?
Well, on the new lot, it's a premium purchase. But on the used market, the average list price for a used IONIQ 5 slid down to about $25,500.
Oh, wow. That is a massive drop.
Yeah. And the result of that price correction was a 152% year-over-year sales spike for that specific model.
152%. That is a staggering jump. It completely validates the idea that consumers actually want these vehicles. They just refuse to be house poor to drive them.
Right. So value is entirely concentrated in late model used cars and accessible hybrids right now.
For a local dealer, the mandate is pretty clear, right? You have to aggressively rebalance your inventory, stop ordering the heavy metal trucks if your local zip code is begging for a mid-$20,000 used EV.
You'd think so, yeah. But here is the massive limitation in all this data. CarGurus tells us what is happening on the ground, but it doesn't tell us if the boardrooms in Detroit or Tokyo are going to actually listen.
Right, like are they going to swallow their pride and start pumping out cheaper trims?
Exactly. And the short answer is that they want to, but they are trapped by their own capital structures. Building the future is unbelievably expensive.
Because developing a brand new vehicle architecture, the chassis, the battery integration, all that, it costs billions upfront.
Billions. And because consumers are rejecting those high-priced EVs, the automakers are facing a severe capital crunch.
So they can't afford to build the cheap cars because they spend all their money developing the expensive ones that aren't selling.
That is exactly the bind they are in, and it leads to a major strategic retreat. There is an industry report tracking Honda's internal moves that shows exactly how they are handling this.
What is Honda doing?
To cut near-term costs and stop the bleeding, they are extending the life cycles of their current internal combustion vehicles. They are keeping the old platforms alive much longer than they originally planned.
Walk me through what that actually looks like mechanically. When a manufacturer extends a life cycle, what are they doing on the assembly line?
Well, normally, every 5 to 7 years, an automaker introduces an entirely new generation of a car. New frame, new suspension hardpoints, new sheet metal.
Which means tearing up the factory floor.
Right. It requires buying all new steel standing dies for the body panels. But what Honda is doing, according to a cited supplier memo, is extending the life cycles of the Odyssey, the Accord, the HR-V, the MDX, and the Integra until the end of the decade.
Wow. So instead of doing a full redesign, what do?
They are relying on mid-cycle updates.
So they keep the bones of the car exactly the same, but maybe like update the infotainment software, tweak the plastic front bumper, that kind of thing?
Yes, because plastic is cheap to mold and steel is expensive to stamp. By keeping the underlying chassis the same, they save billions in engineering and factory retooling costs.
This is like realizing mortgage rates are too high, so instead of buying the futuristic smart home you planned on, you decide to just remodel your current kitchen and wait it out.
That's exactly it. They are doing this to hoard cash. And the same report notes the wider industry context here. Volkswagen, for instance, has openly admitted that their EV profit margins won't match their internal combustion vehicles until their next generation platform arrives.
Which is much later in the decade, right?
Right. The legacy automakers are realizing that if they try to force the EV transition too fast, the financial penalties are catastrophic.
Yeah, I know the Honda report mentioned Ford taking a massive hit on their EV plans, and the Drive reported on a specific charge Ford had to book.
Yeah, tied to the F-150 Lightning program. Ford booked a $100 million charge tied specifically to the cancellation of a segment of that program.
$100 million just to not build something.
It's staggering.
I mean, if you think about the supply chain mechanics there, that's penalties paid to suppliers for canceled contracts. It's paying for specialized tooling that now has to be scrapped.
Wasted engineering hours. It is a heavy, heavy penalty. And it alters the entire landscape for the supply chain. Dealerships are going to have to get used to selling older architectures with fresh coats of paint.
Rather than hyping up these revolutionary redesigns.
Exactly. And the suppliers who build the parts are facing delayed revalidation costs because the old designs are sticking around.
But I do have to throw a flag on the play regarding that Honda news. We need to take a grain of salt here.
For sure.
There has been no official PR release from Honda confirming this delayed rollout schedule. The entire analysis relies on a leaked memo from a parts supplier.
Yeah, and suppliers do long-term scenario planning all the time.
Right. So is it possible we're jumping the gun?
It is a vital caveat. We are essentially reading the tea leaves of the supply chain here. But even if Honda's specific timeline shifts by a few quarters, the broader pattern of capital preservation is undeniable across every major legacy brand.
They're all pulling back.
They are.
Okay, so the legacy guys are pulling back to save cash. But the global market doesn't just hit pause because Ford and Honda need a breather. While the legacy brands are stalling, foreign giants are looking at the U.S. market and seeing an opening.
A massive opening.
Let's look at the backdoor play.
Yeah, this takes us into the geopolitical side of automotive manufacturing. We have an analysis breaking down Geely Holdings' strategy for the U.S. market.
And Geely is an enormous Chinese automotive conglomerate.
Right.
Yes.
And the central insight of this analysis is that they are perfectly positioned to bypass the incredibly strict tariffs and political roadblocks that are supposed to keep them out of the U.S.
And those roadblocks are huge. I mean, U.S. tariffs on Chinese-made EVs sit at 100%.
Yeah, that isn't a speed bump. That's an intentional brick wall designed to make those cars financially unviable here.
Exactly. So how do they get around 100% tariff?
Well, it's a brick wall if you're trying to import a car directly from Shanghai. But Geely's strategy is entirely different. They don't have to climb the wall because they own the keys to the side door.
What side door?
Over the past decade, Geely has built a massive global web of corporate ownership. They own, or have heavy controlling stakes in, Western brands like Volvo, Polestar, and Lotus.
Oh, wow. Which is a huge advantage. Because building a dealership network, a parts distribution system, and a warranty network from scratch takes decades.
It is a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And Geely gets to skip that entire process. They can leverage the established retail networks of Volvo and Polestar.
That's incredibly smart.
But the real genius of this strategy is on the manufacturing side. The analysis points out a very specific, fascinating operational detail regarding Volvo's manufacturing plant in South Carolina.
What's going on in South Carolina?
It's an issue of factory utilization. That specific facility was built with a production capacity of about 150,000 vehicles per year. But its previous annual output was roughly only 18,500 vehicles.
Wait. They have a factory built for 150,000 cars, and they are only building 18,500.
Barely scratching the surface.
That factory is essentially running on idle. I mean, the fixed costs, the lighting, the property taxes, the maintenance must be destroying the profit margin on every single one of those 18,000 cars.
It's an operational disaster if you look at it in isolation. But for Geely, it is the perfect Trojan horse. It leaves a massive void of unused capacity.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. Geely can exploit that gap by utilizing their shared global platforms to build cars right there in South Carolina. Analysts expect that a Geely brand called Zeekr is going to be the spearhead for this.
Zeekr. Wait, aren't those already popping up?
We are already seeing Zeekr vehicles appear in the U.S. as part of Waymo's autonomous ride-hailing fleet.
That is wild. So if
Yeah.
they start assembling Zeekrs inside an American factory in South Carolina, does regulatory scrutiny treat that factory like a Trojan horse? I mean, they essentially sidestep the 100% import tariff.
Exactly. They spread their fixed factory costs over a much higher volume of vehicles, making the plant profitable. It is a brilliant, entirely legal loophole.
Because the global web gives them that rare flexibility. They offset political risk by building locally and selling through familiar badges that Americans already trust.
But this analysis leaves a couple of massive questions unanswered. The first limitation is, will U.S. consumers actually accept China-associated brands at scale once they realize who owns the architecture?
That's a huge question mark.
And more importantly, the regulatory landscape is shifting toward data security. How will evolving U.S. regulations on connected vehicle tech treat these cars?
Right. If the software is routing telemetry data or using code developed overseas, regulators might block the vehicles regardless of where the physical sheet metal was stamped.
Exactly. It's going to be an intense regulatory chess match. But, let's bring this all the way back down to the ground level.
Yeah, because we've mapped out this massive macro environment. You've got consumers revolting against prices, OEMs delaying platforms, and foreign conglomerates exploiting factory loopholes.
It's a lot. And if you are the general manager of a local dealership, you cannot control a single one of those variables.
Right. You can't lobby Congress on tariffs, and you can't force Honda to build a cheaper car. Your only option is to look inward.
You have to relentlessly defend your own margins. You do that by fixing the operational leaks inside your own building. And there are two critical battlegrounds in the dealership where this is happening right now.
Which are?
The digital sales phones and the fixed operations department, the service bay.
Let's start with the phones, because capturing that consumer interest is harder than ever. There is an industry article on Call Intelligence that argues dealerships are actively bleeding revenue through a massive blind spot in their CRMs.
The core issue is that dealerships historically treat phone calls as completely isolated events. A customer dials in, the salesperson picks up, and they start from absolute zero.
How can I help you? What kind of car are you looking for?
Exactly. And the report argues that this creates massive friction because marketing teams suffer from what is called optimization drift.
Unpack optimization drift for me. What are they drifting away from?
Well, marketing departments get addicted to easy, highly trackable digital metrics. They optimize their entire budget around getting cheap website clicks, impressions, and form fills.
But they lose sight of the actual goal.
Right. They lose sight of the highest intent action a buyer can take, which is actually picking up the phone to talk to a human. There is a massive disconnect between the digital journey and the analog phone call.
Oh, I see. The customer has spent 3 hours on your website building out a specific car, looking at lease rates. Then they call the store, and the salesperson treats them like they just walked in off the street with zero context.
Exactly. And that is where call intelligence software comes in. It utilizes a mechanism called identity resolution. Through dynamic number insertion and cookie tracking, the software links that specific phone call back to the anonymous web session.
Oh, that's clever.
The article gives a great scenario of how this works in practice. The second the phone rings, the software pipes the exact vehicle detail page, the VDP that the chopper was just looking at, directly onto the salesperson's screen.
Wow. Along with their payment calculator scenarios.
Yes, right there on the screen before they even say hello.
So instead of starting from zero, the salesperson picks up the phone and says, "Hi there. I see you were just looking at that blue IONIQ 5 and checking out the $400 a month lease option."
It completely changes the power dynamic in the conversation. It removes the friction and accelerates the close.
That sounds amazing, but we do need to apply a critical filter here, right?
Always. The limitation of this specific call intelligence reporting is that the impressive conversion claims are coming directly from a vendor's viewpoint.
Right. The software companies are the ones claiming it works miracles.
Exactly. We don't have independent third-party validation on exactly how much it lifts gross profit across the board.
That's fair. The software guy is always going to say the software is the magic bullet. But conceptually, giving your sales team X-ray vision into the customer's intent just makes fundamental sense.
You can't afford to fly blind.
So that's the sales side. Now, what about the back of the house, the service bay?
Well, the service department is the financial bedrock of a dealership. When new car sales stall, the service bay pays the electric bill, and a massive chunk of that revenue comes from doing warranty work for the manufacturer.
Right. And NADA recently put out a podcast episode drilling into the mechanics of this. Dealerships must manage their warranty coding meticulously to protect their cash flow and reduce their exposure to factory audits.
Factory audits, every service manager's worst nightmare.
Because the financial risk is enormous. When a dealership does warranty work, the manufacturer pays them for the parts and the labor. But the manufacturer is constantly looking for ways to reduce that massive expense.
Right. And the NADA guidance explicitly warns that factory auditors utilize algorithms to look for very specific patterns and variances in a dealership's claims.
What kind of variances trigger the algorithm?
It all comes down to standard deviation.
Yeah.
If your dealership is claiming 3 hours of labor for a specific transmission repair, and the regional average for every other dealer in your state is only 2 hours, you get flagged.
Instant red flag.
Yep. If you have an unusually high rate of replacing a specific expensive module compared to the national average, you get flagged. They are looking for missing administrative approvals or technicians punching their time clocks improperly.
And if the auditor finds a discrepancy, they don't just send a polite email, they hit the dealer with a chargeback.
They literally claw back the money they already paid the dealership.
Yeah.
It wipes out the margin instantly.
Which leads to the central implication NADA stresses. Disciplined, standardized processes are the only defense. The service writers and the technicians have to document every single step.
Every single timestamp.
Exactly.
Right.
To prove the work was necessary and completed to the letter of the factory manual. But there is a huge limitation on the warranty side, right?
Yeah, the harsh reality NADA points out is that revenue is never fully secured until the factory's audit window entirely closes, which can sometimes be months after the car drove away.
It really paints a picture of a fortress mentality. Dealerships are basically weatherproofing their own houses because the climate outside from OEMs and the economy is completely unpredictable.
It really is. And if we pull all the way back and look at the entire scope of these sources, from the consumer data to the factory floors, 3 very clear themes emerge.
Let's lay them out.
The first is a massive shift toward efficiency over expansion. We see that supported by the Honda memo, where they are squeezing more life out of their old internal combustion architectures rather than funding new ones.
Right. And we see it supported at the dealership level with managers tightening up their CRM data and NAD warranty processes. It's all about doing more with what you already have.
The second theme has to be the affordability chasm. The CarGurus data is the bedrock for that.
Absolutely. The fact that the Dodge Charger is sitting for 829 days while buyers are snapping up 2-year-old used EVs, it proves that the gap between what the industry wants to build and what the consumer can actually finance has never been wider.
And the third theme is creative resource utilization. This is heavily supported by the Geely analysis. They aren't trying to build a massive new factory in the U.S. to fight the tariffs.
Right. They are looking to repurpose the drastically underutilized capacity of that South Carolina Volvo plant.
They are finding the back door. But even with those themes, there are some deep contradictions built into the system right now.
Yeah, tensions are high. The biggest tension is clearly between the consumers and the manufacturers. CarGurus proves buyers desperately want affordable sub-$30,000 vehicles, but the Honda strategy shows that legacy automakers are so strapped for capital that they are essentially avoiding the required investments to build those exact platforms.
It's a standoff. And the second major tension is protectionism versus market realities. U.S. policy explicitly relies on 100% tariffs to lock out Chinese EVs.
Yet the Geely strategy reveals how the realities of global corporate ownership create perfectly legal loopholes. You can't tariff a car if it's bolted together in South Carolina by a brand that looks Swedish.
Exactly. So when you look at all of these moving parts, what is the practical takeaway for anyone operating in this environment?
The defining reality right now is that operations beat strategy. Over the last decade, it was easy to win by launching shiny new products or relying on cheap credit.
Today, whether you are a global manufacturer trying to manage factory fixed costs or a local service manager fighting off a warranty audit, the winners are the ones mastering the mundane details.
Operations beat strategy. That is exactly the mindset required right now.
Thank you for joining us on Auto News Talk. We've mapped out a volatile landscape, from the consumers balking on the asphalt to automakers pulling back their capital, all the way to foreign conglomerates exploiting the loopholes.
It's a market that rewards discipline over vision. Absolutely. So next time you drive past a dealership, take a hard look at what is sitting in the front row. Are you looking at a strategy for the future, or are you looking at an $80,000 monument to the past?